What if the secret to making AI smarter and a whole lot more trustworthy was just teaching it a simple habit that we all use every single day, probably without even thinking about it? Well, it all comes down to one thing: planning. So let's dive in and see how getting an AI to simply state its goal before it does anything can completely change the game.
I mean, seriously, think about it for a second. When you're up against a problem, whether it's a tricky puzzle or just planning out your weekend, what's the very first thing you do? You don't just, start doing things at random, right? There's a process to it. And for us, it's almost instinct. You figure out what you want to do. That's your goal. Then you map out the steps to get there. That's your plan. And only then do you actually do the thing. This whole plan, then execute loop is basically the foundation of all logical human thought. It's what keeps us from just flailing around and actually helps us get to the finish line.
Well, here's the problem. A lot of AI models, they just skip that whole planning part. They jump straight to the answer. And that's a big deal because it can lead to some really weird logical mistakes, those bizarre errors we call hallucinations, and honestly, it creates a lack of trust. I mean, how can you trust an answer when you have no idea how it got there?
Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the AI's missing step, then look at how we can teach it to plan. After that, we'll cover the 3 huge benefits, and finally, check out the proof that this really does make AI smarter.
All right, so let's get into the solution. It's a really cool but simple method that researchers are calling speaking with intent.
Speaking with intent, or SWI for short, is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. You're basically making the AI tell you its goal, its intent, before it even starts to formulate an answer. And that simple statement, it works like a roadmap. It forces the AI to get organized and think things through in a much more logical, structured way.
And believe me, this one little change makes a world of difference. A standard AI just spits out an answer, and you're kind of left there hoping it's right. But with intent, the AI tells you its plan first, and then it shows you its work. It's the difference between a total black box and, well, a glass box where you can see everything that's happening inside.
Okay, let's make this real with a super simple math problem. Now, you could probably solve this in like 2 seconds, but it's a perfect way to see this in action. The question is, a robe takes 2 bolts of blue fiber and half that much white fiber. How many bolts in total does it take? So instead of just blurting out the answer 3, watch what the AI does. First, it lays out the whole plan. It starts with the big picture. Okay, my goal is to calculate the total number of bolts. Then, it breaks it down into smaller steps. First, I need to figure out how much white fiber is needed. Then I'll add the blue and white fiber together. See? Every single step follows that initial plan.
And this isn't just some neat trick for math homework either. This whole speaking with intent method is incredibly flexible. It works just as well for more creative or analytical stuff like, say, summarizing a long article.
So if you ask it for a summary, its plan looks something like this. First, provide a concise overview. Then, dig into the specific details. After that, highlight any extra context. And finally, wrap it all up. This is so important because it stops the AI from doing what it so often does, just yanking random sentences out of the text. Instead, it has to build a summary that actually makes sense, a real, coherent story.
Okay, so we've seen how it works, but now for the big question. Why is this such a game changer? Well, it turns out this simple little change brings 3 massive benefits to the table. First up, accuracy. And this one's huge. Just by making the model map out its thoughts first, it makes way fewer logical mistakes. It's as simple as that. And we see this across the board. Whether it's math or answering complex questions, Swift just consistently delivers better, more correct results.
Second, and this is a big one, it becomes more trustworthy. You know when an AI just makes stuff up? We call those hallucinations. Well, StyCai cuts way down on that. Because the model is trained to stick to the plan and prioritize facts from the source material, its answers are just way more reliable. It might leave out a tiny detail, sure, but it's much, much less likely to invent something out of thin air.
And third, we get greater transparency. By stating its intentions up front, the AI is literally showing its work. We can follow its train of thought from A to B to C. And hey, if it does mess up, we can go back and see exactly where the logic went wrong. No more guesswork.
Now look, these benefits sound great in theory, but this isn't just wishful thinking. Researchers have crunched the numbers and the proof is in the pudding.
And wow, the results are really clear. When it comes to summarizing text, you get higher ROG scores, which is just a fancy way of saying the summaries are better quality. For answering questions and doing math, the accuracy just climbs. So, no matter how you slice it, making the AI state its intent first leads to way better performance.
But here's what's really interesting. Sweet isn't just another technique. It seems to be something more foundational. It actually outperforms other popular methods you might have heard of, like chain of thought. And get this, when you combine Sweet with those other methods, it makes them better too. It's like a booster shot for AI reasoning.
Okay, so there has to be a catch, right? Well, yeah, there is one trade-off. It's a bit less efficient. Because the AI is laying everything out, the final text is longer. For some summaries, the output can be about 170% longer. That sounds like a lot. So is it worth it?
Well, the researchers who developed this think so. And it makes sense, right? If you're talking about a critical application where getting it right is everything, a little extra processing time is a tiny price to pay for an AI you can actually understand and, more importantly, trust.
So let's wrap this all up. When you boil it down, speaking with intent is really all about nudging AI towards a more thoughtful, more structured, and honestly, a more human way of thinking.
And why is this so critical? Well, think about high-stakes fields. We're talking healthcare, law, finance. For AI to be a real partner in those areas, we absolutely need it to be transparent. A doctor or a lawyer can't just rely on a black box. They need a tool that can explain itself. This helps build a partnership based on genuine understanding, not just blind faith.
And that brings us to a really fascinating final thought. Once an AI can consistently explain why it's giving you an answer, it stops being this mysterious, unpredictable thing and starts becoming a tool we can actually depend on. So, the big question for all of us is, where do we trust it next?